just like our guest, what a pleasure it is to welcome our guest today, multi-million, I mean millions and millions and millions selling fiction and non-fiction novelist and mental health guru. You'll know him from the New York Times bestseller, The Midnight Library. He's back with a new novel. It's called The Life Impossible. What a storming novel it is. We're going to get into it all now with Matt Haig. Matt, lovely to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. It's lovely to be here.
Is it good to be out and about and out with a new book that you've lovingly put together? And
it is. I thought I'd be like terrified after 4 years away, and I feel like I'm in the sort of firing line, but I've actually been quite chilled about it by my standards. You know, I'm a neurotic kind of person, but actually I'm relatively in my comfort zone at the moment. It seems to be okay, and it's nice to have face-to-face conversations. I feel like a hermit coming out of the cave and getting out there.
Yeah, because you're on your own with the book, aren't you, when you're writing it?
Totally. It's a totally lonely kind of introspective job, isn't it, being a writer? Because you say, but then a book comes out and you're suddenly having to sort of like do festivals and sort of like events and
quite a contrast, isn't it? One minute you're there for months and months alone like a hermit, like you say, and then it's like back out, the door's open and you're...
I think that's why writers are weirdos, because you've got this weird life of like you're sort of like inward looking, and then you're sort of forced out on the road and like having to perform and do that. But I've been actually quite relaxed about it this time, and it's been good to talk about this one because I'm sort of like very happy with it, and sort of wrote it for the right reasons, and it's nice to be back out there.
Why did you the right reasons? What does that mean? Why?
Well, I mean, when you're a writer, you can get a little bit lost, as I've done before, where you sort of get too worried about what people are going to think or what they expect of you, so you're sort of writing with one eye on the reader. But I'd actually stepped away, after The Midnight Library, I stepped away from writing for a bit, and I wasn't going to write unless I had an idea. I wanted to do something real work. I had two ideas of what to do. I wanted to either do the cliche of setting up a bookshop, which would have actually sent me insane, just looking at all these other writers. Or like a sober bar, because I'm one of those nauseating teetotal people who gets evangelical about
the joys of not drinking.
The joys of not drinking.
Okay, that's okay. That's probably a good thing.
And I live in Brighton, which they love that sort of stuff in Brighton. So I thought, a sober bar. But then that didn't happen either. And actually, with my sort of ADHD brain, I would not be great at running a business, and I'm not a multitasker. So I think I am naturally a writer. Anyway, I went back to Ibiza for the first time in 20 years, and while I was there, I had an idea which became The Life Impossible. And I thought, I'm writing this for myself. Some people will hate it, some people might like it, but I'm just writing it for me. So that's why I feel more sort of casual about this one.
It's intriguing as you're describing that, because when you say you are looking at writing a book with a view to seeing what people thought of it before you wrote it. You're writing for other people. That sounds like something a character in one of your books would do. In other words, choose the option that would please somebody other than the person themselves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying by that?
No, totally. And as soon as you open the door, like the trouble is, like if you do any kind of public job, as you know, as soon as you open the door to like the good opinions, that same door is open to all the negative that comes in. So you have to find a place where you're not ignoring other people's opinions, but you've got to just be very centered in what you're doing, very sure of what you're doing. I mean, when you're published, the word publication has public in it. So you are right, it's not quite that you're not writing for other people. Obviously, you could keep it under the bed if you wanted to. You are writing for other people, but first and foremost, you're the first reader of the thing you're writing, so you have to like it.
Yes. You're talking about authenticity as well, aren't you? I mean, totally. You wrote a book that came from the soul rather than that came from a marketing executive.
Absolutely.
Dream.
I wrote, it's a very weird, strange story, and I think it might surprise some people who've read my other books. But for me, it was like I felt like I was writing a first novel. It's like book number 22, but it felt like the first time I've ever put pen to paper.
So no one listening to the show has read it because it's not out yet. So I've had a good go at it, as they say. So I've got a good feel for it. Will you give us the elevator pitch for people?
Oh yeah, I'm really, really bad at elevator pitches.
Okay,
but I'll try and be short.
We'll be patient and take your time, and we're on your side. So
No, it's about a woman, a retired maths teacher called Grace Winters, who is mysteriously left a house by someone she hasn't known for 40 years. She only knew this person briefly, so it's a mystery why she was left this house and why this person died and bequeathed her to use a fancy word, this house. And so this house is in Ibiza. So Grace Winters, this maths teacher, is the opposite of the person you'd imagine who'd go to Ibiza. She's 72 years old. She's quite stiff. She's got a lot of grief in her life. And anyway, she goes over and discovers all kinds of secrets and even discovers things about herself. And there's some sort of fantastical element which transforms her, gives her some abilities. A gift, yes, as it were. Very influenced by sort of 80s sci-fi and stuff like that. Yeah. And she has an adventure. It's a proper adventure story, but it's about how her life transforms, how she overcomes grief, how she learns to live again when she thought she had nothing left to live for.
This is why I'm so excited to meet you. I love the word epiphany. Mm-hmm. And I love the idea of an epiphany, yes, of this moment in your life where you think I can go one of two ways. It's a fork of some sort.
Yeah.
Is that a word that resonates with you?
Massively. I've always liked using the word epiphany as well. There's a writer called Jeanette Winterson, and when I was an unpublished writer looking for help, she actually gave me some advice. I sent her a couple of pages of my book, seeing if she'd give me some comments, and I'd written the epiphanic moment, rather pretentiously.
Wow, I never heard of that.
I know, and she said, change that to moment of epiphany. And from that moment, I think, right, don't be pretentious, just write the simplest way of saying something. But yeah, epiphanies, changes. I think that's what a story is. Something has to change. Some character has to sort of have an epiphany or a moment of transformation, and that. Yeah.
And that's why I'm drawn to it, as I know you are, drawn to It's a Wonderful Life, drawn to the Muppet Christmas Carol, or any interpretation of Dickens' Christmas Carol, where you go, gosh, if I had it again, or I wish I had, or what would you do in the event of? Are those cultural phenomena that resonate with you?
Absolutely. And what's great about like A Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life is that you start off with a character in a bad place, either a miserable place or they're not a very nice person. And then out of that, you take the most unsympathetic character or the most problematic character, and then you find the hope in that. That's what I think the challenge is. You take a bad situation and then find the optimism in it, because no one wants to read rainbows and unicorns all the way through. You want to sort of like feel the hope is earned.
And they're both dark film and originally book, obviously, and two dark books and dark stories. And if we have time, I'd love to talk, because you mentioned Ibiza, and that's where so much of the Life Impossible is. Such an important geographical spot for you in your personal story. And go back to your epiphany, if you want to call it. You were 24, weren't you, in Ibiza?
Yep.
And life got really dark. Don't need to get into the detail now, other than to say it got as dark as life can get. And yet you're still here, thank goodness. And that is now into that realm of jump or step back.
Totally. And it was the hardest thing to step back, and the most difficult thing, and to use the word impossible, it felt impossible. And I was convinced that even after I stepped back, that I wouldn't be here at the age of 25, I wouldn't be here at the age of 30. And when you're depressed, and certainly the kind of depression I have, your whole brain is pure pessimism. You are convinced. It's not like you think something. You're convinced you won't be here. You're convinced you're going to go insane. You're convinced of this. So when you hold on long enough to see a change, to see a difference, you realise actually optimism is as valuable, if not more valuable, than pessimism. Optimism as realistic as any other idea. So if you've got a choice between optimism and pessimism, I will go for optimism, but I'll try and earn that optimism.
I want to talk a little bit more about optimism in a second. Can you stay with us for a little while?
Of course, Ryan.
Matt Haig joining us live in studio this morning. His new book, The Life Impossible, it's a treat. And we'll talk about that and other stories after this. Matt Haig, still with us here. Matt, great to have you with us today. And congratulations on The Life Impossible. Like I say, you're back to Ibiza. You described it before we played some music there, that Ibiza was, at the age of 24, a very dark place. And then I was curious to hear you say a few minutes before that again, that you went there for a trip, about 2 or 3 years ago? Was it your first time since that time?
Yeah.
And how was it?
I couldn't go for years. It sounds a bit pathetic,
Not
really.
At all.
But it was like almost like a war experience, even though it was my war of my own making. But yeah, I was there in the 90s, and I was a crazy young British tourist drinking drugs, and we worked there, and I got myself into a right state. So by the final summer, 99, we were working for a big nightclub over there. I say we, me and my wife and girlfriend. And she had a good job. I was sort of selling tickets in a bar. This was for a nightclub called Manumission, which was big in the 90s.
It'll ring a bell for a few people, if they remember it.
Yeah, I know. Do you remember Ibiza in the 90s?
You weren't there.
You definitely weren't. But so for ages, that's what Ibiza was. And it's easy to sort of leave it behind and to think, well, Ibiza was the problem. And if I don't go about that, I'll be fine. So... but anyway, 20 years later, I actually, for the first time in my life during COVID, I had therapy. As I was drinking again, I was getting a bit, addictive again. Okay. So I had therapy, and it was, I should have had it so many years earlier. And a big theme about therapy for me was facing up to things that I hadn't faced. It wasn't the kind of therapy where you sort of sit there and blame your mother for everything or blame other people and feel validated. It was really like tough therapy.
Okay,
it was really
tough love.
Tough love.
Yeah.
It was really good, and it really worked. And so during that time, I thought I need to go back, and this was in April. I want to go back to where I nearly took my life, and to where I had the worst weeks of my life, and was really sort of in a very bad way. Not just from drugs. I was just in a bad way generally. I couldn't face coming back to London and getting on with life, and it was all falling apart. So I went back, and it was a very different Ibiza. It was a very different me. And during that time, I had the idea for The Life Impossible and changed things around. And Ibiza's a beautiful, quiet, natural place if you want it to be, and it's a proper place of natural beauty. There's national parks there. It's lovely, and I saw all that side of it. Ate the nice food, tried to get my Spanish a bit up to speed, and I had a very different time.
You made your peace with Ibiza.
I made my peace with Ibiza. I made my peace with the past and the 90s, and it felt totally different.
Isn't that a great way to so then by the time you start writing The Life Impossible, you have a more nuanced or happy story to tell in some ways, and the central character Grace Winters is teacher, and your mother, was your mother a teacher?
My mum was a teacher, eventually head teacher. Yes, she was. So there's she probably wouldn't like me saying it, but probably a little bit of her in there. And my mum even taught me when I was in primary school, which was,
more therapy. I
think it was all right.
As a result.
Yeah, at least it wasn't teenage years. But,
well, you always hear those horror stories of poor kids in the class where they say, "Raise your hand, Mum." Oh no, gosh, you got to watch that. But so that was interesting. Your mum being a teacher, and then the character central. Has your mum read this yet?
She has, and it's thumbs up from my mum, so I might put her quote on the cover. My mum gives this a good solid 4 stars.
If she says that's all good. You also have written a lot of books for children, and what I love about what you've done for children, if you don't mind me mentioning them, is that it's so hard to find the right language to talk to children about things that are difficult conversations. And you talk about in your head sometimes about having a film certificate guide to how to. I love that description. That's your own, obviously, of how to pitch a story to a kid. Yeah. Where did that come from? That sensitivity.
Well, you have to be. You have to talk. I mean, I have my own kids, so I sort of learn to talk. But I think also as adults, you can sometimes get it a bit wrong the other way, because I think for certain things, kids can talk about a bit better than adults. So like for instance, grief. I wrote one book where the parents die early on, and the publisher was really sort of worried about that. But I thought, kids can actually handle it. It's how you handle it. And if you are a kid, like adults, you're going through stuff, and they might be going through grief, and they want to read about it, and stories can help them with that. So it's not about staying away from things. It's about how you talk about it.
And be gentle, isn't that? Be gentle,
exactly.
but don't hide away from the reality.
Exactly.
Margaret has been on. Would you please say a massive thank you to Matt Haig, our guest today. He's an amazing writer, but I'd like to thank him particularly for the Comfort book. It's been such a blessing during the past 2 years while I've been having cancer treatment. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Margaret. I hope you're okay now. Thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. Wishing you every happiness today. Matt Haig, it's been really good to talk to you.
You too.
I hope we do it again sometime. Congratulations on The Life Impossible. There's a big launch event for the novel at the South Bank on this Friday 30th. The Life Impossible is out on Thursday, so 2 days to go, 48 hours.
Yeah,
but it's a beautiful book. It's a credit to you, and as long as you're happy and your mother's happy, we're all happy.
Exactly. Cheers,
Take care.
Thanks.